Good morning, everyone. I appreciate your coming on time. It is right now 10 o'clock. I'm going to wait 5 more minutes, and we're going to start with the update on the Regional Transit Authority, but I want to give it 5 more minutes, that's all. But thank you for coming on time. As we commence this meeting, I just want to remind everyone here that if you have any comments, you can make them, but you have to turn in a yellow card, and Attorney Monique, who is behind me, will see you doing it, and she'll go over there to pick up those cards. So you're welcome to. Up to 2 minutes of comment per person. We're going to start our meeting off. We have at least one more council member coming, but the public deserves for our meetings to start on time.
Councilmember, can I get a roll call?
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Present.
Councilmember Moreno, absent. Councilmember Druso, absent. Councilmember Harris, absent. Councilmember King, absent. We have one member. We do not have a quorum.
All righty. We have to do that as a technicality, everyone. All right, so at this time, we'll move forward and invite Lona Edwards Hankins, the Chief Executive Officer of the Regional Transit Authority, to come forward for a brief 10 to 15-minute presentation on upcoming projects. And again, if you have any comments, turn in your cards, please.
Good morning, Councilman.
Good morning. How are you doing?
My name is Lona Edwards Hankins, and I'm the CEO of the New Orleans Regional Transit Authority. You want me to move it? Do I move it or you move it? Arrows. Wrong arrows. So I want to start out by highlighting what our ridership trends have been looking like. So we went back and looked at ridership from 2017 to 2024. And we see there was a steep dip during COVID, but we've been slowly recovering. Our bus ridership is pretty much on par with what it was in 2017. As of 2024, we're a few, maybe a half a million shy of the bus ridership number in 2024. Our streetcar ridership is way down, but part of that has been done intentionally. In 2023, we did a system-wide network redesign. And as part of that, what we heard from our community was that they wanted more hours to put on the bus and less hours on the streetcar. So we did that, and that is the result of this. You can see here in this chart, it's showing that in 2025, so far in the first couple of months, we are, the growth is really tremendous, particularly on our bus. We also had a large dip in 2024 on the streetcar due to all the construction activity that was going on a couple of streetcar lines. The next update is related to our Opportunity Pass. As you're aware, the City Council gave us a grant, some ARPA funds money, roughly about $2.5 million to expend on Opportunity Youth Pass. So it's a free pass program for kids from the ages of 16 through 24. And what we're seeing is that we've signed up roughly 5,400 young people to be part of this pass program, and they're using it. They're using it at a relatively high rate, and we're seeing some success. We've done extensive outreach with our partners, RIDE, the Public Library, and the Community Youth Planning Board, and more to come. One of the things that we are doing is we've executed an RFP to hire a marketing consultant to help us do a little bit more targeted branding, targeted advertisement, targeted recruitment, such that we can attract more young people and their families to take advantage of this bus pass. So I'm going to update you now on a few of our capital construction projects. So the Algiers Ferry Terminal Renovation Project, we're in the final stages of procurement. We've received bids, we're evaluating those bids, and hopefully we'll be bringing it to our board here in the next month or so for award. And then from there, we'll be able to start construction on this project. And we anticipate construction to last about a year. This was done after a robust, or with the community. We've held several community engagement meetings with the Algiers community, with the community at large, trying to figure out how they want this building to operate, how they want to live in this building, what amenities they want in this building. The next project is a pretty robust project. It's several little ones, but it's the end goal is to help us create a program for shelter installation. You may recall last summer we partnered with the Community for Better New Orleans and the Ganoff Foundation. They received Community for Better New Orleans, led a community visioning process on what our shelters should look like, or as it relates to the amenities inside of a shelter. They helped us start a transit inventory. We've since gone out for an RFP and have a consultant on board that is helping us build a transit stops inventory. This inventory will allow us to know whether or not the stop is ADA accessible, whether or not the stop actually has a sidewalk, and what's the lighting looking like at the stop. We will then, we engaged an architect to help us design what our shelters should look like in the future, something that is amenable to the New Orleans climate. We have all weather conditions here. It's not just like in some places they have just cold only. We have cold, heat, rain, windblown rain, and so how do we make sure our shelters can accommodate and protect our citizens? And then from there, we'll be able to then map out a multi-year program for us to go after federal grants to secure a robust shelter building program in our city. We currently, our board commits about $500,000 to help us either maintain or install shelters. We were able to successfully complete about the installation of 24 shelters in 2024. And then the other thing is Community for Better New Orleans is going to help us create and adopt a shelter program where neighborhood associations or businesses can either adopt a shelter to either help us keep it clean or even install the shelter. And that's a benefit to our community. The Downtown Transit Center, as you are aware, we are partners with the city on a federal grant for the Downtown Transit Center. The location of that center is at the corner of Canal and Basin, where the original train depot was located until 1955 when they built UPT. So not only was it an official transit center, I'm sure you recall growing up and going to high school, and that corner was the exchange spot for uptown and downtown, particularly if you were a public school student and you caught bus tickets, or even if you were a Catholic school student and you caught bus tickets, had bus tickets. That's where the exchange was, and really the dating spot.
I'm too young to remember that.
Oh, okay. It was definitely the hot spot.
It was the hot spot.
It was the hot spot. So we want
I'm joking, but I'm glad to see that there's focus being given to what was there once before,
Yes, and we want to be able to build a center to get our folks out of the element and in a waiting area that, creates dignity for them so they're not waiting out in the heat and the inclement weather. So our portion of this work is the is the transit center itself. The city has some improvements along the corridor to make it, I believe, to make it more pedestrian friendly between that location and UPT, is that scope of work for the city. So we will be entering into CEAs and the appropriate steps. We are going to be advertising for an architect here by the end of the summer such that we can award early fall and get into design more robustly by the end of the calendar year. It typically takes about a year to design and a year or two to construct, depending on the size of the building. The other grant that we have that we're pursuing is, again, we have a couple of locations throughout our city that we want to create transit. They are already transit hubs, but how do we make them more pedestrian and user-friendly? One of the locations that I like to always highlight, because it's the one, I guess, in my neighborhood that I always see, is you think about the corner of Carrollton and Claiborne, right? In order to get to a Jefferson Parish bus from an Orleans Parish bus, you literally have to cross 6 lanes of traffic. So from a pedestrian perspective, if you can put the exchange on one side of the neutral ground, on one side of Carrollton or the other for both transit agencies, it becomes a much more pedestrian-friendly exchange. And so that's what we're looking to do with these transit hubs, design them such that they're pedestrian friendly, but also can we give our operators comfort stations, the ability to take, when they have to take their breaks and use the restroom facilities. Right now, our operators are going into the Walgreens or to the Subway to use the restroom. So how do we, again, give our people dignity in their workplace? And this is one of the ways we're going to do it as it relates to our transit hubs.
Isn't there an underground area there? I see people going.
It was
in-
removed.
Okay.
There was one, but I think when the Army Corps of Engineers did their work after Katrina, it was removed. But there
Yeah.
was one, as a child, I would see people walking down, it was removed.
It's just an option in terms of restroom facilities and the like, you know?
It was removed, I think because of the flooding, it always flooded when it rains.
Okay.
And then the bus rapid transit corridor. We have received requests for proposals. We've received responses to this, and we'll be selecting a vendor and bringing it to our board for approval to start the preliminary engineering. That will get us to about 30% design work. And again, we committed to having a robust community engagement process with the community as we start the design, where we're about ready to start the early study and design, and we will have a robust community engagement. As you recall, we talked about doing bus rapid transit from New Orleans East to downtown and from downtown to the West Bank. And our goal is to try to reduce the commute times on the bus. Right now, it's about 45 minutes to an hour, and we'd like to get that down to about 30 minutes for our community. As you're aware, that's where the bulk of the affordable housing are, that's where the bulk of the workers live in New Orleans East to downtown, and how do we make it more accessible and reduce their commute times, and that's the goal of this project.
I'll just repeat a concern that you know I have already. In some areas, such as Gentilly, for example, there's only 2 lanes or 2 lanes and a bike lane. So it's hard to imagine that you'd have a dedicated, just rapid transit line and then just have 1 lane for pedestrians and 1 lane for bicycles.
Yep.
I know that you're going to take all that into account, but I just can't help but continue to emphasize that that's a challenging area to do that.
Absolutely, and you have our commitment to work with you, and it doesn't, and in some cities, you don't have dedicated lanes the entire way.
Right.
Some sections are dedicated lanes and other sections aren't, so there's an answer, I don't know what it is, and that's the whole part of this process with the community to figure out what the right answer is.
Okay.
The next really large project that I'm excited about is fare technology modernization. We've been able to secure a consultant to help us figure out what is the best technology to upgrade to. Across the country, you have more and more transit agencies that are either using your tap card. I was in DC, I was able to load just Apple Wallet and ride the transit system with that. I didn't have to download the app. So what does good look like, and can we bring it to New Orleans? And that's what this project is about. How do we speed up boarding? How do we stop handling cash? And we're being very conscious about this because we know that we have a large unbanked community. So can we use some of the tools that they already use, like Cash App or some of the other tools that are already in existence? And so, it's refillable cards like they have in the larger municipalities. So that's what this project is about.
Is there a timeline?
So,
I don't see it, but I'm
so-
sure it's at the bottom.
Yes, so we have the consultant on board, and
Okay.
he's going to help us over the next 6 months to figure out
Oh, I see.
what the plan should look like, and then we should be going out. Looks like we'll be going out, we're designing the system until next June, and then we'll go out for procurement of the system with the implementation by the end of October. of
Okay, be
27.
sure to share with me a copy of what you have so that I can
Yes.
refer to it. That's all.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we also have a couple of studies that are underway. One is the Universal Accessibility Study. And this is for us to really figure out how to serve the entire New Orleans community. So you know, what should our electronic communication look like? What should the non-visual communication look like? What are our language barriers? How do we make sure we are securing our mobility impaired and making it easier for them to utilize public transit? This will help inform our shelters. This will help inform the buses we buy. This will help inform how we do our website, all of the things as it relates to accessibility for our community. So we've engaged, we have a Transit Access and Equity Committee that is part of the steering committee, and we've engaged the community that services this population to ensure that their voices are being heard. The next project is a pretty big project. It is the Streetcar System Modernization Plan. As you are aware, since about 2016, there have been major lawsuits about accessibility on the streetcar, right? And in 2020, we were able to put several red cars on the green car line to make them ADA accessible. But we have to do more. There's a push for every car to be ADA accessible. So we have had a lawsuit, and in one of the consent decree settlement agreements was to do a universal accessibility, a streetcar modernization study. This was also part of the board's strategic mobility plan, and we believe it will have some real benefits to us, because right now on our streetcar in New Orleans, we don't pay attention to the left turning lanes, and we are consistently having, looks like 69 collisions in 2024 alone. So how do we solve some of our major problems and modernize the system? We recognize that our streetcars are a symbol of New Orleans. So this will be pretty much a tough conversation that the community needs to have as it relates to historic preservation or accessibility. And it's not just for the ADA, it's moms with strollers, it's our elderly who are having challenges getting on the streetcar. And so can we do level boarding, those sorts of things that they have in other cities that makes, and still honor New Orleans. So this is the next kind of community conversation that needs to be had as it relates to modernizing our streetcars and what do they look like.
I'd like to add something for the public that is watching. Many people don't know that there are that many accidents involving streetcars, and I see videos. To the public, let the streetcar pass.
Yes, the streetcar has the right of way.
The streetcar has the right of way. At the end of the day, every accident that I see is someone who sees the streetcar coming and just pulls right in front of it so fast. I think that many times they're concerned about people who are behind them, maybe coming into the back of them, but at the end of the day, the people behind you have got to stop. You put on your brake lights and you trust that they stop. Don't trust that you can beat the streetcar. That's all.
No, the streetcar is just like a train. It's very hard for it to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And then we recognize we have such a large capital program. So one of the things we know we're going to need is some assistance with project management. So at the end of the summer, we anticipate going out for a bid for a program manager to help assist us in executing these large projects. Our project team is relatively small. We think we can comfortably execute projects that are $10 million or less, but these larger, more robust, complicated projects, we're going to be bringing on some bench capacity to help us do that. So this is what our capital plan looks like over the next couple of years. It's a pretty robust capital plan, and we're going to bring in some outside help to help us manage this one-time money.
Okay.
All of these projects will require community engagement, and we know that we are issuing an RFP to, again, our outreach staff is relatively small. We will be bringing in some bench capacity to help us with the community engagement process, organizing the meetings, finding the locations, and then we'll work with them, with our staff, of course, we'll man the meetings, but some of the logistics around community outreach and making sure the community shows up, we know we need some additional help, and we are committed to doing that with these projects. And then last but not least, we are in the middle of hurricane season. And so I just want to point out that our hurricane plan has not changed since 2023 when we worked with the city to determine where the stops would be. The plan is you go to your nearest bus stop and the RTA will pick you up at the nearest bus stop and get you to the downtown transit center, and from there you will be shuttled to the Smoothie King. That is the plan. It's been the plan since 2023, and we haven't had to use it, but we support the city on the evacuation plan. So it's not our plan, it's the city's plan.
It's important for the public to understand that when a state of emergency is declared, or tell me when, tell the public when the trigger happens that the buses then go to the Smoothie
When the
King Center.
mayor orders a mandatory evacuation,
Right.
right, then that's when we go into effect.
It's important for everyone to recognize that if you text NOLA ready to 77295, then you know if a mandatory evacuation has been put in place, you know?
Absolutely, sign up for NOLA Ready.
And I know that not everybody has a cell phone, but 90% of the people do.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, that's our best form of communications other than television and whatever mediums we can use, social media.
And we've done extensive community outreach with the city, trying to tap into the elderly community to make sure that they too are aware, and those who provide those services. So we've worked over this last summer, and every summer, when the city says, let's go educate the community on the plan, we are right there walking with them, educating the community on the plan.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have no cards for the RTA. I want to make sure that no one who turned in a card has a request for comment relative to the RTA presentation. So thank you, Chief Executive Officer Lorna Hankins. We appreciate the presentation, and certainly we'll communicate and continue to work together in whatever capacity we can. So thank you for the details.
Thank you for having us.
And actually, the written part of your presentation, I do have access to. I just didn't have it in front of me. So everything is good.
Thank you for
All
having
right,
us.
thank you. Our second presentation is from Mr. Darryl Saison, who's a senior consultant with Saison and Associates, and it's just to give an update to the public because some of the meetings that take place, the public doesn't have access to. Just as we are now kicking off on August 16th, the rail service from New Orleans to Mobile, there's also work going on relative to New Orleans to Baton Rouge. So maybe, Mr. Saison, you can give us that update on New Orleans to Baton Rouge, tell us your capacity, and then just comment for a second, put you on the spot, comment for a second on the New Orleans to Mobile and the importance of that, okay? I know, I didn't tell you I was gonna ask you that. Just comment on the importance of it. I don't have to have any details. And what opportunities are presented.
Okay. I'm Darryl Saison. I've been with,
Darryl, do me a favor, pull that microphone as close as you can to you. Good.
I'm Darryl Saison. I've been with this project and other projects similar to this for a long time. And to answer your question on Mardi Gras train, when the Mardi Gras train,
And for the record, the Mardi Gras train is Mobile to New Orleans.
Mobile to New
And vice
Orleans,
versa.
it was the Gulf Coast Limited when it was stopped in 1998. I was a member of the Regional Planning Commission, and we worked very hard to get the service reinstated. But you know, it started to help the World's Fair, okay, and people used it from Mobile to New Orleans and that kind of thing, and it's been a fight to get it reinstated. Well, anyway, the Southern Rail Commission deserves a lot of credit for this, as well as the states. It's going to be beginning operation in August, as you know, Council, and we're hoping that it helps document the need for rail service, you know, on the Gulf Coast. And what New Orleans to Baton Rouge will do is it'll pick up from that, you know, that synergy created. New Orleans to Baton Rouge has been talked about for a long time. You know, I've got a volume of studies that goes back as far as the late 70s, but you know, there was a station in Baton Rouge, in downtown Baton Rouge, where Catfish Town is now, and it accepted trains from New Orleans, you know, years ago. That station was torn down, Catfish Town came, and so it goes in the vicinity of Baton Rouge, but not actually in Baton Rouge. So anyway, this project is going to be done under LADOTD. The route was accepted and put in place in modern times by the FRA in late 2023. And a study was commissioned.
Do me a favor, when you use certain acronyms, just tell us what it is.
Federal Railroad
LADOTD is
Administration.
Department of Transportation and Development for the public that's watching.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's okay. Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development put an application in which FRA approved in late 2023.
Federal,
Railroad Administration.
right.
Okay. And what happened was they issued a grant to LADOTD to look at the possibility of reestablishing service between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. The decision they made was that it had to go through the Corridor Identification Program, which documents the need for the service. Well, the area has changed a great deal. The major airport for Louisiana and the Gulf Coast is LANOIA. And the people, and I could be corrected on this, the director's in here, but 62% of the people I've been told who fly out of the Baton Rouge area come down here to catch a flight, which creates a problem on the interstate system. So we've revived that project. And what happened was the project is now going through that corridor identification program. I apologize for the lack of visuals today. We're developing those as we move along. The route has to be documented between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. It has to be studied for all kinds of reasons. And that's why it's in step one, identifying the route under the corridor identification program. Step two prepares a service development and funding plan, which outlines the concept and identifies the need to implement it throughout the corridor, as well as engaging a number of individuals, groups, and throughout the corridor to speak in favor of the service. We're now in step two. Step one has already been done, and it's under review by the Federal Railroad Administration. We'll authorize step two. And then under phase three, step three, under the corridor identification program, that's where the hard engineering is done, following NEPA regulations, National Environmental Policy Act regulations. And actually, the biggest problem on this corridor is the bridge, the Bonnie Carré Spillway Bridge. That's going to be a costly effort because the current bridge is not acceptable for rail passengers. It's cargo. But what happens is you've got to update the whole track route from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, and that's what this study is trying to do, or will be doing. The stops will include downtown Baton Rouge, where a station's going to be rebuilt, the Mall of Louisiana, down the route. I'm going to go from Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, St. Charles Parish, St. John the Baptist Parish, St. James, Ascension Parish, and East Baton Rouge Parish. So the stops are in the Mall of Louisiana, downtown Baton Rouge, Gonzales, LaPlace, the airport, and the Union Passenger Terminal. We're determining all of those things right now under step two, how you get to do it, what the cost is going to be, and getting as much support as we can to move the project along. I don't have a timeline on this, but I can tell you that we'll be getting approval, I think, on completing phase one under the corridor identification program and the ability to move on to step two, which the federal government has agreed to fund.
Why is this important? Why is New Orleans to Baton Rouge important? Obviously, people can drive cars there and get there whenever they want. So
Well,
what is the reason that the federal government is involved, and what's the stakes involved with Louisiana? How much are we talking about at the end of the day?
We don't know
this
yet.
corridor. All right.
We don't know yet. I mean, it could be, I've seen the numbers be as low as 240 million, 260 million, and as high as, 800 million. I don't think it's that high. We had money in 2009 dedicated, but the governor at this time passed on it, which should have happened because there was more than enough money in the budget Obama proposed and got passed to get this done. So why is it important? Because you've got all this synergy between both ends of the corridor, New Orleans and Baton Rouge.
Come closer to the mic.
Synergy between people coming down here for events at the Superdome or the arena, whether it's games or whatever. Synergy going in the LSU and southern direction going to Baton Rouge because there's a lot of traffic up and down the corridor. And of course, there's the airport, which is the major airport for this region and for the Gulf Coast. So I can tell you that this is the best shot we've ever had at getting this done. I'm going off script now, but that's okay. I've been on this a long time. This is the best shot we've had. Amtrak has put it on their national map, this route. The Southern Rail Commission deserves credit for that, as well as the governors of all the states deserve credit for that. And people who are working to try to make this happen. So I think that what we have is an opportunity getting through this program to get the authorizations we're going to need from the Federal Railroad Administration and Amtrak to move the project along.
Okay.
In future months, we'll be able to give you more updated information on it as we develop the protocols that actually make the thing happen. This is a project that is really important to this part of the state and the Gulf Coast because of the traffic between up Baton Rouge and New Orleans. We have the interstate. I tell people, and this is kind of a crazy comment, if you're going from New Orleans to the airport, you got a flight. It's an adventure.
If you're going from what? New Orleans to the airport? Well,
downtown New Orleans to the airport.
Okay.
The city to the airport,
All
this
right.
airport. Because you don't know if you're going to get there on time. It's not the airport's fault. It's just simply traffic on the interstate. You can't keep expanding the interstate. You really can't. It's not something that can be done. This is an efficient way to move people up and down the corridor. And there's a plus here. This will assist in hurricane evacuation if they've got people got to move north. So that's why the government has authorized this. The railroads, the Canadian Pacific Railway has made they've initially approved it. Details are being worked out right now with the state, and we're moving forward on the project.
What about the environmental impact? Is there a reason that the federal government is putting money into it that affects the environment?
Under phase 3 or step 3 of the CID, the Corridor Identification Program, you've got to look at the environmental situation. You've got to, because the environment has changed between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, especially if you're talking about building a new rail bridge, which is the major expense of the project, to cross the Bonnie Carré Spillway. The bridge you see there now is suitable for cargo, but not for carrying individuals. So that's where we are. And as I said, I think that a lot of public support has been generated along the route. Greater New Orleans Inc. has been involved over the years. The Super Region Committee is something they called Baton Rouge to New Orleans. We're talking about a lot of different sporting events coming to New Orleans. We're talking about a lot of different things happening in Baton Rouge, because of, the success of sports up there. And just moving people up and down the corridor. So that's why the project has come back. We will have more information as phase 2 of the Corridor Identification Program rolls out. And then the hard engineering is going to be done under phase 3, which is actually, what's it going to cost to take the bridge down, what's it going to cost here, there, that kind of thing. And preparations are being made now in Baton Rouge for a downtown rail station, and in Gonzales, and in Laplace, Gonzales for a rail station. In Gonzales, they have a facility, but they might want to use another one. And of course, we have the NOUPT. And I have to throw this in. The team has met in Jefferson Parish because there's some talk about a stop at LaSalle Park along Airline after leaving the airport. So we want to honor them as well. Those things all have to be worked out. And hopefully, when we come back before the committee, we'll have visuals and more answers.
Thank
That's
you.
my report for today.
I appreciate it. For the public to know that just like the New Orleans to Mobile route and the rail service took a long time to get back in place, this is going to take a long time to be developed, but there are certainly benefits to Louisiana. So just let us know as a council and the public know what we can do to assist this and make sure that the money stays there.
Yes.
On a federal level, because we know that they're taking money from everything else. If it's beneficial to the, to our community, which it is, our state, we want to be involved. So just let me know what we can do to help.
We will-
Letter writing and the like, all right?
We will be, just to put a pin on it, we will be soliciting statements of support. And I have to say this, across this project, as well as the Mardi Gras train, enjoys great bipartisan support between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. It has in the past. There are a lot of people who are interested in this from both sides of the aisle happening. And that's one of the reasons why I think the project is still alive today.
Thank you, Mr. Saison. We have
Thank
no
you.
cards. I appreciate your
Appreciate it.
presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to, with deference to the folks who are here for the Bike Easy presentation, if you give me, our meetings don't last a long time. I want to get a quick report from the airport, and I want you all to be present for it too, because what will happen at the end is that you'll leave and then you won't hear this. There's a good news going on at the airport. I'm going to ask Mr. Dolio to make a presentation, and then afterwards, we'll have a presentation by Bike Easy Safer St. Claude campaign and the daylighting campaign. And Mr. Dolio, if you could identify those who are joining you from the New Orleans International Airport.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, how are you doing?
And thank you for inviting us here this morning. And we do. We have a good update. Given we're kind of squeezing in, we'll be very efficient in what we do. And what we'll do today is just update you on a couple fronts. One, air service activity over the past year. Two is the progress of our master plan and how that's wrapping and what the numbers are driving in terms of future development needs. Third will be a current construction program update. And then we'll finalize it, given the season, with just one slide on a quick hurricane preparedness update. Okay? So as far as the air service front, over the past year, this slide reflects the new air service that's come online. Alaska Airlines began nonstop service to Portland, Oregon in January of this year, and Portland was a highly desired destination. Here was one of our, if not the top unserved nonstop destination from here.
Portland, Oregon is a top
Portland, Oregon.
destination for New Orleans.
Portland, Oregon.
Who knew?
Good numbers.
That's why we have these
Portland.
meetings. Somebody's waving back there. You from Portland? See, it worked.
Who would have thought, right?
Right. All right.
And Avelo Airlines, which is a new airline, began service to MSY in November of 2024 to New Haven, Connecticut. Avelo has gone through some significant change in the past couple months, but has not impacted New Orleans in a negative way. In fact, that flight seems to be doing well for them, so I expect that to remain, and I expect we'll see additional service down the road with Avelo. Breeze Airways. Breeze continues to provide good service to this market. They've added Tampa, Florida, 4 times a week in June of 25. Announced new service to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and reestablished Savannah, Georgia, beginning in September. And just recently announced nonstop daily flights to Los Angeles and Las Vegas, beginning in February of 26. With that, Breeze will now goes to 15 destinations served from this market. Some seasonal, but most of it is year-round service. British Airways, since return post-COVID, and even with the effect of the current environment on international travel, British Airways has continued to do well here. They came back with 4-time weekly service post-COVID. They've now moved to, in peak seasons, 5 times a week. and the flight continues to perform well. Caesars, something not definitely new to the market, but new in terms of what's serving the market right now. This is scheduled charter service, and it's really geared to bring folks here to utilize the Caesars facilities here and book packages that involve certain hotel destinations and other activities in the city, along with utilizing the Caesars facility in the city. So most of the service is into New Orleans, but they do offer that will offer that the public can book service to Atlantic City and Reno from here. Spirit Airlines has done well in their Central American service. They introduced San Pedro Sula during the pandemic. The flight has performed well to the point that the flight is now daily service into San Pedro Sula. And they just recently introduced two-time weekly service to Tegucigalpa, and that seems to be getting off to a good start as well. So good news on those fronts. I will tell you that the nation in general, right now, demand is soft for air service. New Orleans, like the rest of the country, we're right with, in terms of capacity, we're actually slightly up in capacity, but demand has softened system-wide. And it's opened in the industry. It's seen as a temporary thing, and that will get back on the normal growth path from here. But there has been a softening this year of demand for air service. Now into the master plan. Master plans are very prescribed processes. The FAA pretty much spells out how an airport master plan is to be completed. You can add different components. You can't take away from what the FAA has prescribed as necessary components. It's a 20-year look ahead for an airport, and it lays out, based on current facilities and based on future projections of traffic, where gaps might be in capacity to service what's coming online in terms of demand in the market. Our master plan, they're typically an 18 to 24-month process. We're winding down in the last stages of our master plan, and we'll soon have our final public hearing in the August-September timeframe, and we'll be wrapping the master plan about that point, looking to get final approval from the FAA. Okay. The next slide gets into the master plan a little bit. I mentioned projected traffic into the future. This slide just quickly shows different growth scenarios in the market. The baseline on just normal steady growth for the market, a high employment growth scenario, and low employment growth scenario. Until this lull in traffic, we're really tracking on the high employment growth scenario. So our planning activity in this master plan has tracked that. And for instance, by 2031, the master plan is indicating a need on the next slide for additional facilities to service shortages we'll have in facilities and capacity needed to serve at 9.7 million employments in planning activity level 2, which is about 2031. So as we complete this master plan, you see the bulleted items here are indicated needs based on a high growth scenario. An additional 15 gates, more ticket lobby, more security checkpoint. Those two items are going to drive a second terminal facility. More baggage claim, the third item, driving the new facility. Roadway modifications to accommodate the increased traffic that will be on the roadways with the increased employments through the facility. and additional parking spaces, a 3,000-plus parking garage and transportation center combination to service the increase in that demand as well. The next slide points to really a 20-plus year scenario. The master plan takes us to what's called PAL 4. That's the 20-year horizon and a 60-gate need over that full horizon. So that's everything existing's in the dark blue there, centered, the two fingers and the linear concourse along with the terminal and the 2 parking garages. The brown areas, that one sliver to the right of the dark blue would be a 5-gate add-on to that end of the facility, the east end. And to the left there, going west, would be a 10-gate facility. The small finger you see coming onto the airfield. Across from that, a second terminal. And then to the right of that second terminal, the parking garage, ground transportation center I was just describing, with bridges connecting, pedestrian bridges connecting everything to the airside facilities. So this takes us the 20-year plan, or planning activity level 4, it's by 2041 or so, would take us to 60-gate total. And with the ability to expand beyond that for needs and beyond 20 years out. Okay. The immediate program coming out of the master plan, and master plan phase 1 takes us to 50 gates. That planning activity 2 level I mentioned with the new roadway system, the new garage I described, the west terminal and the blue box labeled there, the 5-gate east concourse expansion, that purple or violet area to the right, and the west concourse would be a 10-gate addition initially, and then that would grow further west as more gates are needed. So that's 15 gates, the new terminal, and new parking facilities in the master plan phase 1 by planning activity level 2, which is in the 2031 timeframe. Also, we're beginning, and Jamie will describe a little bit more as he gives a construction update, an express shuttle connector road to take all of our shuttle activity from the south terminal to the north terminal off the public roadways, away from traffic signals, out of the mix during peak travel periods on Veterans Highway and so forth, onto a road that's dedicated for our shuttles, stays on airport property, and wraps around the airfield from south to north. Will significantly reduce the headway times for that service, be quicker back and forth at all times consistently, at all times of the day, because you won't be dealing with peak traffic at different times of the day. And it will eventually connect. So think of the south side. We have the economy parking garage there on the south side. Our employee parking's there. And the rental car facility is there with all of the shuttle buses that it drives. So this would immediately service those shuttles, but it's also geared and constructed to later accommodate on that corridor either an APM system, that's an automated people mover, that's a light rail type concept that airports use, or an autonomous vehicle system of transiting back and forth on that corridor. One of the two will come following this, and it will tie in to, as Daryl Cezanne described, the Baton Rouge, New Orleans rail with a stop at the airport. This would tie and connect into the rail station eventually when that comes along. And now, Jamie, and I didn't introduce everyone up here. This is Erin Burns to my left. She's the Deputy Director for Customer Experience, Marketing and Communications. Jamie McCluskey is Deputy Director for Planning, Development and Construction. Walter Krygowski is Deputy Director for Operations and Maintenance, and Walter will touch the hurricane briefing slide. And Christy Bennett Holmes is our Deputy Director for Commercial Development. Under Christy comes Air Service Development. She was just here to make sure I didn't mess up the Air Service Development slide.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, I'll give it to Jamie.
All right, good morning, Councilman
Good morning.
Green. So I'll step you through some projects that we have got currently going on and some that are in the near future, and I'll link them to what we've got going on in the master plan, where you can see they're enabling projects to get to that next phase that Director Dolio talked about. So the first project we've got is called the Check Baggage Inspection System, and that's just a fancy word for our baggage system. What we're doing with that is we're expanding the system for another explosion detection system. So that's the fifth EDS. So that'll give us another 25% capacity in that system. And what that does is it provides the capacity for that eastern expansion of that concourse that you saw in the master plan. So that project's already undergoing. Yeah.
You might recall in the old terminal, when you checked your baggage, there was baggage screening equipment behind the ticket counters visible to the public that your bags were screened through before they were loaded onto the belt to go into the bag makeup area behind the counters. This system has all of that built in. It's an inline screening process, and there's an area in this system that houses these explosive detection machines or units that Jamie was describing, and another unit, as he explained, is being added to increase our capacity there.
And so as you can see, that project is budgeted around $45 million. The timeline for that construction is started in Q1 of '25, and it'll go all the way to Q3 in '26. The next project that we've got just about to get underway is the Express Shuttle Connector Road. And what you're seeing on this slide is what we call Phase 1, which is the north section. That section is 78% funded through IIJA, and that's a combination of what they call AIG, that's Airport Improvement Grants, and ATP, which is a discretionary fund, which is Airport Terminal Program. So that's funded and ready to go. And then the next part of it, as you saw on the other slides that the Director Dolio walked through, the southern section will come in the near future. What's significant about this portion is you'll get early operational capability to move over in that north section, and that'll eliminate 2 traffic lights where there's some congestion on Veterans, and get early efficiency in that project while we're building the southern section of it later on. As you can see, for that part of the project is $52 million, and the timeline for that is July 25, which is, we're right there. They're getting ready to start moving some dirt, and then the end of that part of the project is Q4 of '26.
And the funding sources that Jamie was describing, the AIG and ATP, those are federal dollars. That's through FAA programs. And this program's running for about 5 years, and we're tapping into it to support this and some other projects as well.
One of the bits of good news that a lot of people don't know is that most of these projects are funded by the federal government, so it's an investment into our airport, into our community, creates jobs, creates efficiencies,
Right.
but it's not under the city's budget,
Right.
which is good.
True.
Okay,
It's a mix of funds, but not out of the city's budget at all.
all right.
So the next projects, just to shore up the airfield, our 2 biggest assets are our runways. So runway 220, the last time it had a reconstruction was 2003. So it's beyond its 20-year life cycle. So we already have the design for 220, and it just went out for solicitation last week. What the keel section represents is the center 2 panels of the runway all the way down the center. So this project would be 75% grant funded, and working with our FAA partners, they asked us if we could get that out on the street immediately because it seemed like some federal funding was coming to the fore. We already had the design in place. So the whole team reacted very quickly. We've moved that out for solicitation ASAP. And so we expect bids to come back within the 30-day period that solicitations go out. As you can see, that's a $50 million approximate project. 75% of it's funded by FAA grants, and we're looking to get started on that in Q1 of '26. Right in behind it is runway 1129 maintenance, and you'll see a little rectangle there of the area that we're talking about. And what we do is we do a pavement management system of all of our airfield just to see what its condition is and what the status is. So once we complete 220, we'll come back at 1129 and do some maintenance and rehabilitation on that with some asphalt mill and overlay in that section. We expect that project to be in last quarter of '26, and it's roughly an $8 million project. The design is complete on this one. We're just waiting for 220 to get complete. Another project which was fully funded by FAA and a different grant, which they call supplemental grant money. So that's 100% grant funded for 7.8. This creates more depth in the what we call the remain overnight section of the airport, and this is a logistical area where aircraft park and stay overnight at the airport because the airlines stage them as they're flying, across country each day. So on this particular project, it's also an enabling project because it creates more room for the expansion of the East Concourse. So the FAA had this money available, and we, because we were in a master plan process, we understood what our needs were, and this is how we decided to do this enabling project that will allow us to build East Concourse. Another project that we've got also linked to the master plan is we identified different surface areas that we could, leverage an asset of some vacant area in and around strategic locations of the airport. So in this one, you see two surface lots. One is adjacent to the short-term garage, and the other one is adjacent to the long-term garage. And this will provide overflow parking, especially, as you know, in New Orleans, we have a lot of special events. So this will provide close to 400 additional parking spaces in and around the terminal area. The budget for this is about $8 million. We're looking to get started in Q1 of '26. The design is complete, and this one's in procurement.
Is that also FAA funded?
This one is what we call locally funded, so that's with our airline partners.
So we'll issue debt to
Bond issue.
to pay for this, and it will be paid over time through the rates and charges to the airlines. You'll find the FAA grants are typically tied to airfield and safety projects, runways, taxiways, aircraft apron, things of that nature. And then many times for terminals, parking facilities, roadways, landside. There's other sources we use, something called the passenger facility charge. Goes a long way in helping us in developing facilities. We issue debt that is covered by the airline's rates and charges, or there's self-generated funds we can use for smaller projects as well. So there's just different ways we go at it. But again, to your point, not touching the city's budget at all. No local taxpayer dollars involved in the airport operation at all.
Okay.
In any airport, anywhere in the country.
And the other part to note about that one, that's a revenue generating project, so that will end up paying for itself.
Okay.
So with that, I'll hand it over to Walter to give an update on the hurricane season preparedness.
Good morning, Councilman Green.
Good morning.
Walter Kragowski. The airport, we do have our 2025 hurricane plan in place. We've completed briefings with the city's NOSEP department as well as some other local briefings. We've participated in those. During the hurricane season, we do repeatedly and routinely go out and inspect and test a lot of our critical airport infrastructure, such as our generators are tested weekly. We go out and inspect the stormwater pump station, our emergency operations center. We have one in the airport, and we do test that equipment, our sanitary sewer lift stations, and then just generally looking at all aspects of our facilities, roofing, to make sure that we're ready in the event of a hurricane. And if we do unfortunately have an event that would occur, we have a ride-out crew of approximately 60 staff that stays at the airport throughout the event. So we prepare for the oncoming storm, and then we're there for the immediately recovery, because we know that the airport is such an important, critical asset for the whole city of New Orleans to get those recovery efforts to come back and facilitate that recovery that would happen in the city. One thing to point out, and I'm sure constituents probably always ask you, well, when does commercial service end if we have a hurricane? That's dictated by our airline partners themselves. Each airline has their own plan on when they will scale back. But in general, what we can say is H-18 or 18 hours before tropical storm force winds reach that coast, they start scaling back that commercial service. But, and then it's that plus if tropical storm force winds are 40 miles per hour sustained, that's usually when all that service really starts scaling back. So that's usually a good rule of thumb that we want the public to know. And TSA, they will continue to do the screening operations as long as there is commercial service, and they will only cease that screening for passengers once the last flights have departed from the airport. And last but not least, we want to remind folks that the airport is not a public shelter. So if there is an incoming storm, we would just ask them to please make sure they check with their airline before coming to the airport to make sure that they do have a verified flight, because we want to make sure that they get out if they need to from the New Orleans area. So with that,
How do you share the alerts relative to airlines and their decisions to not take off or land? And I want to offer the NOLA Ready alert system, because we have 200,000 people now who have, 77295, and they get alerts, so maybe that's an additional bit of communication.
and most certainly I defer to our communications deputy director down there, because I know she does put out a lot of that information as we get it. Erin?
Yeah, so typically we will post the updates on our website and on our social media accounts with the airlines, because there's so many of them and so many varying decisions made at the time. We always stress that passengers should check directly with their airlines, but we certainly appreciate the offer for NOLA Ready, and perhaps that's something, a message that we could utilize that platform for, just to remind people who do have travel scheduled to check with their airlines or use our website for some valuable information and contact information. So thank you.
Thank you, all right.
And I
Thank you.
should note, along with that communication, which goes out constantly and consistently, Walter Shop also holds a series of briefings throughout, in preparation for the event and throughout the event, of which the airlines and other tenants are participants as well. So there's different ways we're communicating with them, keeping them totally engaged, also getting feedback, pulling information from them through our briefings and updates as to needs that might be missed. And I should note too, we, the leadership team, the director and all of the deputy directors, we don't manage from afar. We mentioned the 60-person ride-out crew through an event. We're all there too throughout the event. So we're hands-on through an event, and we're there to assist our folks in decision-making and in communicating with our various stakeholders.
I thank you very much for your presentation. A lot of good news, especially on those new projects. 2026 is going to be very busy.
Very.
From what I see, a lot of construction going on. But, it's owned by the city of New Orleans. The airport is owned by the city of New Orleans, but of tremendous benefit to our entire region and our entire state. And this is an example of why the ongoing projects, the really good news, media who wants to pick it up, the decisions by airlines to run nonstop flights from New Orleans is great news.
Right.
Great news. In the midst of, as you said, I guess the softening of the market, just
Yeah.
temporary, is that the best way to see the softening of the market?
It is a softening of the market nationwide, and we suspect it's temporary
Right,
through the environment right now.
okay. I thank you for your presentation. I thank you for the sharing of the good information. And let us continue to know how we can work together as a city and the airport, you know, especially the city council and the airport, to keep us moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I thank you for being here, those who have come to support the Bike Easy presentation, and I appreciate your patience as we deviated a bit from our agenda. That was very helpful information. I'm glad that you all were here for it. So we have a presentation now on Bike Easy Safer St. Claude campaign and the Daylight campaign. Aline Laspina, just Executive Director, and Mike Ince, Acting Director, and one other person. So.
And Laura
Can you tell
Harris.
us? Okay, good to see you.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Councilmember Green. Thank you so much for having us. Monique was great coordinating this whole thing, so I appreciate the support. The presentation is a bit long, but it has some really great information, so I appreciate everybody's patience as we go through it. I'll introduce myself, Aline Laspina, Executive Director at Bike Easy.
I'm Laura Harris, Education and Policy Manager at Bike Easy, and I've been riding a bike here in New Orleans for about 20 years now.
Mike Ants, Director of Mayor's Office of Nighttime Economy.
For folks who are not familiar with Bike Easy, we're your local bike nonprofit. We've been around for 22 years advocating for easy, safe, and fun bicycling for everyone in Greater New Orleans. We mostly do our work through education, community advocacy, and capacity building. And we're going to be presenting on one of the campaigns we've been working on for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and Bike Easy, we're also part of a greater coalition called the New Orleans Complete Streets Coalition. So this is a group of organizations, businesses, civic leaders, community members who support improving our roadways and safe transportation options in order to enhance our health, equity, sustainability, prosperity, and quality of life in Greater New Orleans. So today we're going to be talking about our campaign for Safer St. Claude. I'm sure everybody here in the room is familiar with St. Claude Avenue. For the purposes of our advocacy today, we're going to be really focusing on the section that is considered a state highway between Elysian Fields and the Industrial Canal. But you know, some of our recommendations here we would like to see along the entire corridor, as well as along for every state route in Greater New Orleans. Go back. So, a little bit of background of St. Claude. We know this links 7 historic New Orleans neighborhoods. It's home to dozens of restaurants, venues, galleries, schools, medical facilities, lots of community serving businesses, and it's a really key connection for a lot of people as well as freight in the whole region. And previously, this portion of the corridor has been designated as a Louisiana Main Street. So, as we said, it's one of our city's most vital corridors, but as we've seen from the myriad of traffic fatalities that have happened on this corridor, it's certainly one of our most dangerous and unwelcoming corridors for people biking and walking, even though many people in this corridor have lack of access to a vehicle. And here's a photo from one of our outreach interventions, giving out bike lights to folks on the corridor. So as we said, this has been an unfortunate place. Pretty much anyone who's been on the intersection of St. Claude and Elysian Fields has probably seen this memorial. This has clearly been going on for a long time, to the point that someone took it upon themselves to build this DIY memorial with this pile of ghost bikes. Hopefully we have a more permanent memorial coming to this intersection. Unfortunately, we've been bringing this up for a long time, and change has yet to come. And another person was killed on the St. Claude corridor just earlier this month on July 12th in a hit and run.
You can mention to the public the memorial that you're doing on Friday and Saturday. Let the public know now.
So critical mass goes on Friday evening, and before, I believe it's at 5:30, please check their social media to confirm. they're going to be having a ghost bike to be painted by the community to be installed on Saturday morning. We're going to have actually 3 more bikes with that bike to be painted that need to be, so anyways, Friday, 5:30. Check their social media to confirm.
Yes, and this is a photo I took at an event organized by Critical Mass, which is sort of an autonomous bike ride that works to show people that bikes have a right to the road. So this was sort of added in response to a community engagement ride that was already planned that day, a die-in memorial, and this is the intersection where Michael Milam was killed earlier this month on the corner of St. Claude and Alvar. It was really powerful to see all these people feeling the pavement and imagining, that's what Michael felt and everyone who felt, as they lost their life on this avenue.
So this is what we want to do today. We want to make sure that the people who have died are at the forefront when we talk about St. Claude. A lot of the times, my perception is that the folks that can make decisions to influence change on corridors like these think about us as cyclists. Maybe they think about the bike, but they're not thinking about the people that are dying on the street. So I'm going to show 4 pictures that we have for the bikes along St. Claude right now. And then I also want to take a moment to read a statement from Dustin Strom's parents. Dustin Strom died on the same corridor on June of 2023. Sorry, I get a little nervous. On June 13, 2023, our son, Dustin Strom, was killed at St. Claude and Marigny Streets while on a blue bike by a motorist traveling at a high rate of speed under the influence of drugs. Upon impact, Dustin's body and the bike traveled a great distance. At the time he was killed, Dustin was on a dream trip around the United States. Dustin loved to travel, enjoy delicious food, meeting people, and loved good music, which he found in abundance in New Orleans. Dustin was a caring person who cared deeply for others. He had a profound respect for all people and offered those around him absolute compassion. In his every action, Dustin made sure that anyone he encountered was able to live their life with the utmost dignity and acceptance. Dustin is profoundly missed by his parents, Barry and Alan Strom, and his sister Jessica Strom, family that lived near and far, and Dustin's many dear friends. All of these people can point to specific moments that remind them of Dustin. Cooking campfire fish with a little butter and garlic as a 6-year-old, wandering into a polka festival by accident and becoming part of a new community, rescuing the family dog from a swarm of hornets, standing by and holding tight in times of joy and sorrow, and finally seeing him pull up in his beloved Ford Econoline van for a visit. This past weekend was the annual Trumansburg Grassroots Festival of Music and Dance, always a highlight of Dustin's year. Many of Dustin's friends come together each year at this event, traveling from all parts of the U.S. We attended the festival as well. It was very bittersweet for us not seeing him having a great time, dancing and being with his friends that he grew up with. Although Dustin was not physically there, we could feel his presence. An obelisk stands in Dustin's memory and that of other dearly departed friends. But we wish more than anything that he could be there himself. Our only son's life was cut short in an instant on June 13, 2023. Dustin will never have the privilege to be a husband or a father or continue his love of meeting wonderful people or seeing all the beauty of this world while traveling or pursuing whatever dreams he had. He will never have the opportunity to grow old. We will never hear his voice again or feel his great hugs. I urge you to please make the streets safer for all bicyclists so no one else has to lose a loved one. No one should have to bury a child. Barry, Ellen, and Jessica Strom. And I'll just mention they submitted this as a comment, but so I included a couple other pictures. And this is not just one district problem. We have signs for bikes. Most recently, I helped the folks at Ghost Bikes reinstall a bike on Leon C. Simon Drive. Monique, she's a resident of Gentilly. She was a nurse in Ochsner, and she died in 2016. And when I met her mom, as we're putting this bike, this pain was so fresh still. And nobody should go through these. And I really want everybody here, everybody who's listening, think about this while we're going through this presentation. We just want no one to go through this kind of pain going forward.
Thank you. So just a little bit of background just on what the St. Cloud Corridor is today. A lot of this great data was compiled by Tara Tolford of UNO Transportation Institute. So as we said, St. Cloud, we all know it plays a vital role in multimodal access for, thousands of locals as well as visitors. Over 10,000 people live in the census tract adjacent to St. Cloud. Of these, 23% of households lack access to a vehicle compared to 18% citywide. So this means that, of course, more people are relying on walking, biking, and transit to get around. And a lot of people like to live in this area because it is relatively bike-friendly. However, it's clear that St. Cloud is not. Between 2017 and 2021 alone, there were 9 fatal traffic crashes, and I'll also hold up a more recent map of more traffic crashes between 2020 and 2025 from the health department. So clearly, the data is strong that this is a very unsafe corridor. And it's a corridor that people take. A lot of people say, oh, why don't you just take a side street or go around? But the reality is that because of the way the corridor is kind of constricted by the industrial canal, the train tracks, if you live on the lake side of St. Cloud, or if you're accessing any one of the myriad of destinations on St. Cloud, the fact is there's going to be people biking and walking on St. Cloud no matter what, and they deserve to be able to get where they're going safely. So some traffic counts from UNO Transportation Institute. This is one of the most popular corridors for people biking, and this has been going on for a long time, and we have an estimated 341 bicyclists per day as of 2003 on this corridor. As we know, this is a state highway. Total motor vehicle counts on St. Cloud range from 18,000 near the St. Bernard Parish line to 23,000 near Elysian Fields. It's also a designated truck route. That's a picture I took riding my bike in the part of St. Cloud just to show what it's like to share the lane on the downriver side of Elysian Fields. It also carries one of the busiest bus routes, so we know that a lot of people taking the bus means those people are walking to take the bus. So again, people that are walking and biking in this neighborhood connected to transit. So in some of the observations of how people bike on St. Claude, the manual counts show that most people are following traffic laws, biking in the correct direction, walking on the sidewalk. However, it's also been observed that a lot of people, there's a lack of children bike, there's a disproportionate amount of male bicyclists. A lot of people are biking on the sidewalk, and when we see people biking on the sidewalk, that means they probably don't feel safe to bike in the roadway. There's also certainly latent demand for more biking and walking. That's the next slide, sorry. So this is a lot of people commute. So yeah, this is another people commuting to work by walking and biking above the citywide average in the St. Cloud corridor. And it's also seen that majority of trips from the St. Cloud corridor are pretty short, so there's certainly an opportunity for more of those trips to be done by walking or biking. According to the city's city accessibility dashboard, there's 94 intersections along the whole corridor. 62% are ADA compliant, 31 are partially. So, we have a good foundation for fostering a more walkable Main Street here, but we know that accessibility means more than just compliance, and we need safe crossings and comfortable facilities for users of all ages and abilities, and we know that St. Claude certainly is lacking in that. We're going to get into more of our observed hazards here. Okay, Main Streets, Green Streets. We also know that we're lacking a lot of tree canopy in this area. So one thing we can do is really increasing that tree canopy makes it feel safer and comfortable for all modes of transportation here. This is the urban heat island severity map here, just to show how hot it is. Anyone who has biked on St. Cloud realizes that.
Yeah.
So I think this part's really important, that St. Cloud is part of a greater network. So this is the New Orleans Bikeway Blueprint Plan that was launched by the city in 2019. And here, as you can see, that St. Cloud Avenue is designated as protected bike lane in this plan. So it's been in the plan for a while. We've seen little movement towards the realization of this complete network. The city's really been lagging in recent years as far as its momentum in building out the protected bikeway network that has been promised and has been in the plan. So this isn't a new idea that we're coming, to the floor today with. And St. Claude is, connected to other streets. People shouldn't have to turn the corner and be under jurisdiction, as what is currently the case when someone turns on from Elysian Fields or Marigny Street to St. Claude. They completely lose, any kind of protected infrastructure. So here's Elysian Fields Avenue, where I lost a friend, Ben Gregory, who was killed biking home. He was an artist coming home from the French Quarter. He was killed before there was any protected bikeway here on Elysian Fields, but since the installation of this protected bikeway on Elysian Fields Avenue, there have been 0 fatalities of people biking. So I think that's that really shows how much of a victory this life-changing infrastructure is here. So why not continue this infrastructure around the corner onto St. Claude? This is of course, St. Claude turns into Rampart Street. So literally the same corridor, North Rampart, has seen a lot of great complete streets improvements. There's a protected bikeway on, the lakeside of North Rampart. We all know it needs to be better. There's no protection on the riverside, but this is from a recent planning meeting to implement even better bikeway infrastructure connecting onto Lafitte Greenway. So I think it's really important to remember that St. Claude is a part of this network that continues both downriver into St. Bernard and upriver to Rampart Street, the French Quarter, connecting to the Lafitte Greenway, and all these neighborhoods that people come to and from St. Claude. I think it's also important to remember that a lot of people bike in New Orleans overall, and some studies, this 2019 study found that we are number 5 in bike commuters per capita. So, I think I like to say we're number 1 in bike commuters in the South because I don't really count Washington, D.C., right? So, I think that's amazing that we have so many people biking, and the reality is, that we have a lot of people biking in New Orleans, and that's just part of the culture here, so we should protect those people.
Portland, Oregon is number 1.
What's that?
Now, that was a reference to the fact that the aviation committee said that Portland is a high destination for New Orleans.
Yeah, Portland, yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah,
And
there's
now
a lot
Portland
of
is number 1.
cross-cultural interchange there. See?
I'm going to pause here for a moment when we talk about community engagement to give folks some context around this campaign. Soon after Dustin died in 2023, Councilmember King's office actually contacted our office and asked, what would it take to put protected bike lanes on St. Claude? I'm extremely disappointed not to see this council member today because he's been part of this conversation for 2 years. So just want to give some context on that, and then also let you know that we have had many meetings. We've had, and the tricky thing with St. Claude has always been, it's a state road, so sometimes the city officials will point at Louisiana Department of Transportation Development and say, they need to design it better, but then, and then I'll use the acronym since I just explained it, LOTD, if that's okay. Pointing back saying, well, the city needs to enforce at a local level. So we have had Office of Resilience and Sustainability be part of the conversation, Health Department, Department of Public Works. We've had NOPD in these meetings, Parks and Parkways. Most recently, Office of Nighttime Economy has joined this conversation. So just want to give some context that we have been having this conversation for a while. So with that, and
But conspicuous in your comments is that you haven't mentioned the state yet.
sorry?
The state of Louisiana.
So
the
we
state
have
authority.
had Louisiana Department of Transportation Development be at our meetings as well.
And what
Yeah.
what is their reaction?
So sometimes it's the pushback of like, well, you need enforcement at a local level. Or, and Laura will mention this in one of the slides, they did do some improvement, which was adding a no parking sign on the bike lane in front of Robert, but it's installed so high up, you can't even see it, and it's simply not radical enough to curb the behavior on the corridor. And what we're proposing is a solution that's a mix of behavior change, design change, accountability on enforcement. It's like we need all the agencies to work together. And one thing to think about is it is a New Orleanian who is dying in the street. It's not a person that is aware that he's going through a state road, so he's in more danger there. Like a lot of the deaths that are happening in our city are happening. Chef Mentor, Claiborne Underpass, Petey coming out of his bartending job in St. Louis on Claiborne got killed. And it's, you know, it's a big issue on the agencies just not being able to like come to an agreement on how to work together. And that's what we're here to put pressure on that. So wanted to put that context there.
I don't want to be defensive relative to the city, but
Yeah.
I look forward to more involvement. Yes, this is Councilman King's district, and he would be here otherwise. He's out of town. He's
Yeah.
in Atlanta right now. But I know over time I'll find out a little bit more. But it's interesting that you mentioned 3 thoroughfares that are state thoroughfares. And I don't think we put enough pressure on the state of Louisiana. They have a $51 billion budget. They control those major thoroughfares, everything along the port. They control Lakeshore Boulevard,
Yeah.
Lakeshore Drive through the Lakefront Management Authority and others. And I'm not making excuses for what the city has to do. But when someone tells you that we can't do something because it's up to the city to enforce, well, maybe try it and see if we can do that. I think that the city does a good job of enforcing in certain areas.
Yeah.
We all know the lack of, I don't like to tell a certain community the same words all the time that we don't have enough police officers, because we do.
Yeah.
We do have enough police officers. But just yesterday, the story yesterday was on Broad Street of someone driving a 4-wheeler crashed into a coffee shop, could have killed himself.
Yeah.
Again, that's a state thoroughfare. I
Yeah.
think that they need to be called on verbally and loudly to step up as a state to assist the city with regards to the infrastructure that's necessary, and then we'll do what we can to enforce, you know, the regulations. But I don't have the ability to, on my own, and I happen to have Mr. Rick Hathaway here, who I'm greatly appreciative that he's here, to create a bike lane on St. Claude without the permission of the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's interesting you bring up Broad Street. Recently, there was a community meeting to talk about the proposed bike lanes that are going to go on Broad on the stretch that's missing from Tulane Avenue and Bienville. And they are receiving comments, and they are making changes there. They're going to put a new Hawk beacon pedestrian light on Greenway and Broad Street, which is such a point of conflict. So I know they can do it. We know they can do it. It's about prioritizing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as we were saying, you know, we've been kind of advocating and calling out the state on this for a long time. So this is a bike ride that we organized in November 2003, where we had folks from LADOTD, from the city, community members, neighborhood organizations come out, and I had folks come on a bike ride at school pickup hour on St. Claude. Councilman King was there on the bike ride. We rode blue bikes. It was his first time on a blue bike. It was cool to see him get on there. You know, and I think, you know, people enjoy the bike ride, but I also, you know, we have folks from LADOTD in this picture. You know, we showed them, and obviously we felt a lot safer in a group ride than it would have been for them riding individually, but, you know, showed them, hey, people, look at this bike lane being blocked by parked cars, look at people double parked, look at the school buses being parked in the bike lane. Clearly this is not safe. So we've been bringing this, you know, we've literally got them on a bike and shown them almost 2 years ago now. So we've been asking for this for a while from the state. So here's some more images from that community engagement ride. Maybe I'll pass it over to Mike here to talk about some of our findings after we did a year later this bike walk audit to really document some of the hazards we found on St. Claude.
Good afternoon again, everyone. Mike Entz, Director of Mayor's Office of Nighttime Economy. Just want to first start off by saying thank you to Bike Easy for putting this bike walk audit together and really emphasizing and stressing the lived experience of people that do commute on St. Claude or do frequent some of our nightlife venues. You know, I kind of want to go back, when I start off with this, I want to go back to some of the comments that Aline had made, as well as yourself, Councilmember Green, about You know, the argument that has come down from the state that we need to primarily focus on enforcement for these corridors is that I think we can all agree that enforcement is no way out. We have to have a full approach, working with all agencies as well as stakeholder groups, which we have a couple great business organizations that are within this corridor, to try and tackle this issue, right? Kind of focusing on that, you know, enforcement's not going to get us out of this problem, is that we have a built environment problem, right? You know, focusing on some of these slides, in which you'll see here is long overdue deferred maintenance by the state. I have zero problem expressing those opinions, that, you know, we are promoting this type of behavior by not focusing on small fixes. What you're going to see in some of these slides here are severe lack of highlighted crosswalks, signage. You know, we can mention the no parking signs and what that presents. Of course, you know, that is a parking behavior issue that I think people at times think that may be harmless, but not understanding what you see at night is that there are a lot of blind spots that you put yourself into, because there's so much activity taking place on the corridor that it's natural for us to focus on things and areas where there are people congregating. And so, you know, what we'll kind of go through here is some of the bad parking behavior by folks out there. Again, these comments have been expressed repeatedly to myself as well as our office from business owners and their concerns for their patrons out there. You know, we can go ahead and click on over. So some of these comments are just kind of in general what I had mentioned of what people experience there, whether, you know, you have a right lane, you know, parking issue next to Robert's where it's forcing a cyclist to kick out into the interior of the right lane. You have numerous instances where people will try and park as a Uber, Lyft, rideshare, taxi cabs that will park in the right lane. Patrons will get out into oncoming traffic. Then it forces a cyclist to kick out or stop behind them. Somebody behind them may not see them. There's numerous instances that we can reflect upon that puts cyclists and pedestrians in harm's way. We have food trucks, we have numerous vehicles that are present there and legally permitted. But again, a lot of this gets back to bad parking behavior, so of course parking enforcement is a part of the solution. But I really want to focus primarily on the lack of maintenance and certain installations that can be done to prevent these type of behaviors from happening. You know, we can talk about the issues on the neutral ground right there. There's two hot spots, you could say, at the beginning of St. Claude near Elysian, as well as a little bit further down by Press. Majority of the parking issues over there, whether it's degradation of the neutral ground, which the city has spent a considerable amount of money to repair and retain, is that, again, it forces people to look behind cars when crossing the street. The motorists cannot see them. There is lighting, but it is lacking in ways. Signage, of course, warning signage on each intersection in these hotspots would be very, very helpful. As you can see from this image right here, if you're trying to cross the street, this is a little bit further down on St. Claude by, I believe, Galaxy and Saturn Bar and Night Bloom, is that you're forcing people to peek out into the street and limited amount of time for a motorist to even see them. So, you know, kind of going back to some of the recommendations that Laura and Aline had mentioned was, you know, a focus on thermoplastic striping, flashing warning signs, as well as potential for, you know, some audio warning signs as well for people. Of course, we can mention these issues on the triangles where people are illegally parking. There's also images where some of the thermoplastic striping has been severely degraded, so people aren't even aware that they're parking illegally at times. You can see here on the left side of this image that there's a little bit of a lighting gap. So there's ample lighting, it just may not be as illuminated as necessary. But again, you know, we have numerous issues here around built environment. You can see the lack of thermoplastic striping here. You click to the next image. So, yeah, go a little bit further down.
There.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, we can stay on this, that's fine. So again, you know, talking about working with multiple agencies, we have begun this discussion working with Public Works, Office of Resiliency, as well as DOTD about, the proposal of possibly installing some breakaway bollards on the neutral grounds in these pocket areas so that we could prevent the motorists from parking there. Of course, there are issues with DOTD for allowing those type of installations, prevention of, crashes and what may increase damage or more public safety threats to patrons that are in the neutral ground.
Tell me what
That's kind of where the discussion has
What does the
landed so far.
what does the DOTD say to you in your meetings relative to stopping people from parking on neutral grounds?
In the beginning, when I first came on board with the city, it was primarily focused on enforcement, which of course we know parking enforcement's done a great job with the limited amount of resources available to them. I can't thank them enough for their help to our office and enforcement at night and really understanding the threats to public safety it presents. I kind of focus, not to get off topic, but everything that happens in these corridors really starts with parking. We see bad parking behavior, increase other behaviors that impact the nightlife. But they have been very open to this discussion. They have not said no, which I think is a great opportunity for us to continue on with this. The costs associated with it will not be small, of course. Mentioning Broad Street, we have the same issue over there at Broad and St. Bernard with illegal parking, even spilling over into the McDonald's parking lot across the street from Jay's Place. So this is not just one option, and I definitely agree with your statement that the state has, a lot of opportunity to be good partners here, but it's also in the benefit of them as well, as two of these corridors are designated Louisiana Main Street communities, so they are vibrant economic drivers for the city as well as the state, and so they have a direct investment in this as well for us to all be safe.
Yeah, and I want to add to, I'm sure you remember our meeting on AP Turo when folks were like, well, why can't we just make AP Turo like Harrison Avenue so we can park in the neutral ground? When we were presenting having the protected bike lanes adjacent to the neutral ground. And, there was pushback, but people have adapted. And it's a shift on behavior. When we did our bike walk audit with Mike, we were walking down St. Claude, and just 2 blocks down from the Always Lounge, there's so much parking. But out of convenience, our behavior is like, I just want to be like 5 feet from where I need to go. Or it's also that the block between where it's well lit and has parking, there is no lights, and there's maybe some homes that look a little bit beat up, so people might not feel safe walking at 2 a.m. in the morning to their vehicle that's parked just 2 blocks away, because they just don't feel safe. There has to be a shift on behavior. That's why we say it's a multi-layer approach, but there's certain things that we are able to influence for change. So, but yeah, I'm sure because I appreciated your response to that.
Yeah.
We were there.
And also, I remember the discussions relative to AP Turo, how it was going to run the people out of business who were in business, how people weren't going to have a place to park because they're going to have to park too deeply in the community, and now they've stopped parking on the neutral grounds at AP Turo. It just happens that way sometimes. We just have to recognize that some attitudes are ingrained in, the Big Easy, if you will.
Yeah, of
But then
course.
things can change if you make the changes that are necessary. And which gives me an opportunity to just suggest publicly that I don't think that we all collectively put enough pressure on the state. The city certainly, I understand the Cs, Cantrell, the C, City Council, C, all those Cs. But many times and I'm even guilty of it as a council member, but I'm saying more now, the state has the resources. It's not a matter if you don't have the resources. If you want to do a homeless and transition center for the Super Bowl, you find $27 million to do it. If you want to put lights on the Crescent City Connection, you find $30 million to do it. Many times that's just by executive order that happens. So I've already said enough that I'm going to get criticism, but at the end of the day, I just want to work with you to recognize I don't ever want it to be suggested that the state doesn't have the resources. The city has some resources too. We do invest. But we can't not put pressure on and just say, let's get past the argument about we don't have the resources and put the resources in place, and then let the city figure out the enforcement part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, moving along. We're more than halfway there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, like we said, so maybe just, I just I added this one in because I thought this was especially appalling. This is on the bridge. I was biking across the bridge and I noticed the detour sign was placed in the middle of the bike lane, and you see how I got smushed between this giant truck
Yeah.
with nowhere to go. And I just think that's completely unacceptable to be placing signs in the middle of the bike lane.
And so what does that LA on it mean?
Yeah, it's the state, we know, but I
Mr.
know they're
Mr. Rick-
listening.
Mr. Rick Hathaway and the Department of Public Works would never block a bike lane to detour
Yeah.
people off of the street. I'm just telling you, you're giving me a chance to vent. That's
Yeah,
all.
no, that's what we're all here. All right, so, just to summarize, some of the key safety issues here is the fact that the bike lane's unprotected, so it's not giving any safety to people from, cars running them down in the bike lane, from people parking and blocking their passage, and it's not protecting them from people opening their car door into the path of somebody biking. The illegal parking on the neutral ground and too close to intersections is making the visibility really bad for all road users, drivers, walkers, bikers. Excessive speeding, we all know people are driving much faster than the posted speed limit on St. Claude. And we know that the lack of marked crosswalks, bump outs, proper lighting is really detrimental to pedestrian safety on the corridor.
I would like Bike Easy and others to help me with number 3, excessive speeding. We have got to change the attitude in our city relative to some people who think that our thoroughfares are speedways.
Yeah.
Just yesterday's press conference was someone on a four-wheeler driving at maybe 60 miles an hour with no helmet on, crashed into a building, could have killed himself. But every weekend especially, but every day really, on Broad, on Claiborne, on St. Claude, on Elysian Field, on Lakeshore Drive, we just have so many people who feel that they have the right to drive much over the speed limit. And we've got to do something too, and I'll talk to Mr. Hathaway about this too. And I'm willing to try to make the resources available. We almost have to have a public relations campaign that just says, slow down.
Yeah, I think,
You're gonna get where you're
Colleen
going. You're
said,
passing
it's
somebody on a
really
bicycle.
yeah,
Right, you're passing somebody on a bicycle, be deliberate, slow down.
yep.
I don't know where people are going.
Share the road. You're not the only person
Yeah,
there.
I think it's going to take, a diversity of tactics here to address that issue. Certainly not just enforcement, design, and just a change in behavior. And just also getting more people out on bikes. The more people that bike, the more it's going to be safe for everyone.
There's a city in the US that was having a similar issue on a state road. I'll try to remember what it is and I'll follow up with you, but they were trying to reduce the speed limit and there was a lot of pushback because it's a state road. So what the city did is they changed the timing on the street lights on that corridor, which over time changed the behavior of the drivers because I'm gonna speed to a red light. So slowly, it just shifted the behavior. And that was such a clever way to deal with that. High visibility crosswalks prove that it will slow down traffic. Vertical barriers like a cedar block like we have on Esplanade Avenue, if we had those in the neutral ground, of course, making sure that people could still park during flood. Yeah, so we'll show that. But these little things are proven to help slow traffic. So,
Okay.
So that gets kind of a great segue into our next section here, is that, we know that people deserve complete streets in New Orleans, and that calls for better design on this corridor, and especially all the state routes going through our cities here. This is a chart from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration Bikeway Selection Guide. Here it shows, best practices for how to design a bikeway based on the speed of the roadway. And knowing that people on St. Claude are going well over the posted speed limit here, you see that calls for a separated bike lane or shared use path. Again, part of the Federal Highway Administration's Proven Safety Countermeasures Initiative cites that converting traditional or a buffered bicycle lane to a separated bike lane with flexible delinear posts can reduce crashes up to 53%. And here's an example of that kind of bikeway already in New Orleans on Tulane Avenue. We want to make sure our streets are safe for all ages and abilities. A quote from the Urban Bikeway Design Guide from NACTO says that when designed, constructed, and maintained well, protected bike lanes provide all ages and abilities safety and comfort regardless of vehicular traffic and speed. Protected bike lanes are the only tool for all ages and abilities biking on streets curbside demand speeds of more than 25 hours, certainly St. Claude, multiple adjacent travel lanes, or motor vehicle volumes above 6,000 vehicles per day. So clearly, all of the national standards and Complete Streets best practices would call for St. Claude to be a protected bikeway. And I wanted to mention that there's precedent for state routes adding protected bikeways. This would not be the first in the country. Some examples are in Durham, North Carolina, and in Seattle. And I think, this is a great opportunity for New Orleans to really set a good example for other state routes and across the country. So here's some short and long-term solutions we can work on towards a safer St. Claude. So some short-term things. Here's just a little Photoshop job I did of where there's currently no flex posts and what it could be like to add these flex posts. From some of the previous images, you saw that sign is not doing anything to prevent people from parking in the bike lane in front of the Roberts here. Simply adding flex posts is a very cheap, easy solution we could do tomorrow, and that could save somebody's life and prevent people from frequently parking in this bike lane. One possible solution to reduce the illegal parking in the neutral ground that's still, causing such visibility issues on St. Claude is the installation of timber bollards. I know, maybe the state might push back on this, but I think, we should examine that because the illegal parking right now is causing a big issue, and installation of timber bollards like this could be another simple, quick fix to reduce that illegal parking issue.
What are the reasons that the state might push back?
I think that it's like there has to be a certain amount of feet from the roadway. They're afraid of a car crashing into it, right? But it's clearly that's like a car is going to be going too fast if they're crashing into that.
Not only that, they're wooden bollards, so they would just run it over.
Right. Yeah.
It's not-
Well,
it's
there's
not
also like
concrete.
the breakaway bollards that Mike was mentioning could be another option. So definitely exploring something like this. Implementing intersection daylighting. So another big issue we talked about. That's St. Claude. We also know this is a big issue in the adjacent neighborhood of New Marinier, South 7th Ward, is not being able to see at intersections. This is relevant to people of all modes of transportation. A lot of places, the yellow triangles have faded away, or people just disregard them and are parking illegally too close to the intersection, making it really hard to see. We know that cars are generally much taller and bigger than they were 10 years ago, so we really need to account for that in our design and make it so people can see at intersections. So that's where this term daylighting comes in, which is an urban design technique of preventing cars from parking too close to the intersection, and we can do that with really nice design. If you go to the next slide, you see an example here. I think this was, I believe this was funded with stormwater drainage funds in St. Roch neighborhood along Villery and Music and Art Street. So this is, it has a, multi-purpose effect here. It increases stormwater drainage, but it also prevents people from parking too close to the intersection, and it looked nice. I know this will take a lot of maintenance, but I think it's really worthwhile doing this at a lot of our intersections, especially those intersections approaching these big state road crossings. So there's some short-term things that could be possible if we want to dream really big. This is one possible solution, perhaps narrowing the neutral ground to give more space to the sidewalk side of the road, adding a protected bikeway with some kind of landscaping and adding the parking on the outside of the bikeway. This is sort of a street mix based on the actual dimensions of St. Claude. If we were able to narrow the neutral ground, we could create enough space for widened sidewalks, protected bikeway, and more landscaping, and still allow 2 lanes of traffic and car parking. So here's some examples of how this could look from other designs in other cities. This is from Minneapolis, sidewalk level bike lane. This is kind of offers the most protection. This is kind of another example of how it could look on the dimensions of St. Claude Avenue. Here's an example from Telegraph Avenue in Oakland, which I feel like has a lot of similarities to St. Claude as far as, a lot of businesses, a big thoroughfare. Here we have a concrete barrier separating the automobile traffic from the bike traffic. Here's a great complete streets example from here in New Orleans. I also want to mention, we would love to see a long-term design that really includes transit as part of this. This is a cool spot on Marconi where we have a bus island that allows the bike traffic to go through and gives a safe place for people to wait in a sheltered bus stop for their bus.
Marconi is a good example. There was outrage
Right.
before it happened. Everybody was going to go out of business. The students from Delgado weren't going to be able to get to class. And now all of a sudden, it's just fine. Ted Gormley wasn't going to be able to be used. Nobody would go to football games anymore because it was down to one lane with, dedicated bike lanes. And it worked. Everybody's pleased. So at the end of the day, you're hearing from me that I recognize there's always going to be opposition. Right now, there's opposition to doing the other area of Marconi where you can have some parking and one lane going each way, but people will get over it after a while.
Yeah, we
Okay.
agree. And I also wanted to throw in that bike lanes are proven to benefit businesses. So in addition to making it a lot safer for people, there's plenty of studies that show it's actually going to increase business. So in contrast of some of popular belief that it's going to destroy their business, there's plenty of studies that show that people biking tend to make more frequent trips to local businesses, spend more money than drivers sometimes. And there's a lot of examples from Salt Lake City, from New York, and other cities that have real clear data to show the impact of this. And also I think we can just see that from examples that we mentioned of maybe some pushback on bike lanes that were installed, like Barone Street. I know there was a lot of pushback, but certainly I don't think we can say anything about it being a detriment to businesses on that corridor. And generally, having a protected bikeway, better pedestrian infrastructure is going to be enhanced quality of life for all people on the corridor, traveling through the corridor. Even if you're a person who's never going to ride a bike, having a protected bikeway is going to increase your quality of life. So we're going to go back to, kind of our final ask to the city here.
Yeah, and this is where there's nuances to who can do what. So hopefully we can all read between the lines and see how we can work together on these. So of course, a lot of the times people will only fund things that are backed up by really good data. So doing the studies to collect these data are important. I think one achievable goal is to demand from, or have the city help us put pressure on LADOTD to do a safety study on the corridor. They're currently doing one on Haim Boulevard between Downman and Paris Road. And this is something that's, led by community needs of really observing what are the needs to increase safety on that particular place. So that's something that's achievable. They have a model for it. As you mentioned, they have funds, so maybe they can have some funds to do a safety study on this corridor, and they can be like, okay, indeed, we need to do some changes here because they'll have the solid data to back it up. Another specific one that I think we could accomplish before the end of the year is help us demand from the LADOTD to do a safer crossing on Marigny and St. Claude. All we're asking is high visibility crosswalks, make sure that it's clear that it's a crosswalk. Not everybody understands that all intersections are crosswalks, whether they're marked or not, but we're hoping that at least that will show an olive branch that we want to move together towards the same goal. And I think that's something that could be easily accomplished before the end of the year. So, and there's some more, helping us work with all the agencies together. It's been great to have folks from different cities' offices believe in our campaign and guide us on strategizing how to go about it as well. So that's implement short-term safety measures immediately, the safer crossings and the safety study.
And again, bringing it back, we need to really honor all the people who've lost their lives in this corridor and commit to not losing another life of a person biking in New Orleans. So I really hope we can work together to implement some of the things that we're calling here. So, for anyone watching or in the room, if you want to support our campaign or get involved, of course, contact City Council folks that aren't here right now. Contact your state representatives and LADOTD. You might have seen one of the map of kind of hot spots of bike lane obstructions that we showed as one of the slides. That's through an app called Bike Lane Uprising, so you can help collect data on bike lane obstructions through using that app or submitting also to the city through 3311. You can sign our petition on the Complete Streets website or at this QR code here on the screen. And of course, keep walking and biking. You can follow us on social media at NOLA Complete Streets. And if you'd like to get involved with Bike Easy, you can join our newsletter, follow us on social media, become a member, donate, and of course, go for a walk or a bike ride. That's gonna just contribute to more people walking and biking and give you the perspective to be a better advocate. So thank you all for having us today.
Thank you for the presentation. I do want to let you know I'm appreciative for Mr. Hathaway being here today, the Director of Public Works, obviously the city's Public Works. And the city's Public Works Department does a lot more than we think. But for example, the safety study that's being done on Hain Boulevard, that used to be a state thoroughfare. And it's now a city thoroughfare, and we're studying
That was another
safety.
thing I was going to bring up. It would be amazing if we could find the funds for St. Cloud to be a city road, right?
Right, yeah, well, I'm not gonna say it can't happen, but at the end of the day, we can also push the state to do what the state is supposed to do. So what I'm gonna do is we have some cards, so we'll have some commentary from the cards, and I'll close out with a couple of comments. But I look forward to working with you more and working with Mr. Hathaway to do what we can to put pressure in the right areas. I can't help but be redundant that so many of the thoroughfares that you brought up are state thoroughfares. And even if I wanted to do certain things on it, it's not under our jurisdiction. And we get criticized and then held accountable if it's not done right. I like the idea of looking at St. Cloud a little bit more. Maybe a narrowing of the neutral grounds is a fine idea. It can be done if the state wants to do it. But okay, we're gonna, each commenter, just remember, just 2 minutes for comments, and we appreciate your being here today. I see some that are just checked in support, so I'm gonna call your name, and if you wish to come to the microphone, you can. When I assume that the safe support might mean support of the Bike Easy Safer St. Cloud campaign. So, but you're welcome to come up. Mr. David Simons or Simmons? Simons? Simmons. We talk on next door, don't we?
A couple times, yeah.
Plus.
How you doing?
Yes, good to meet you officially.
Nice to see you.
Okay.
I'm sorry that none of your colleagues could be here. So I've been a cyclist in New Orleans for 14 years, and I personally witnessed 2 cyclists killed on St. Claude. Just on St. Claude, I've seen 2 cyclists killed. One was in 2014. I never learned that person's name. The other was 2 years ago. I saw, excuse me, 2 years ago I saw Dustin Strom killed in front of me at the corner of Marigny, and I saw his body thrown about half a block by a speeding pickup truck. And I had the awful task of having to describe his death to his father, who wanted to know what the last moments of his son's life were like. I've had many close calls myself, many close calls. Very often when I'm riding in a bike lane and someone is trying to pass in the bike lane and suddenly notices that there's a bicycle in the bike lane. More than 6 years ago, as you'll remember, 9 cyclists were run down in the Esplanade bike lane. Two of them died. The city supposedly raised the fine for parking in a bike lane to $300, yet this law is almost never enforced, as far as I can tell. Parking in a bike lane has, on paper at least, been a towable offense since 2017, yet I've never once seen anyone towed for doing this. Parking in a bike lane is not even mentioned on the long list of parking offenses on the Department of Public Works website. I personally have reported cars parked in bike lanes nearly every day for the past 10 years. I'd estimate I report about 50 per week, which is a small sample of the ones I see.
It cuts off at 2 minutes. But we just want to get to everybody, but I know that Mr. Hathaway is making a note of that. You can make a note of what might have been, is it on the website? Okay, he'll take a look at it. He'll take a look at it. Wait, 10 more seconds, but we want to be fair to everybody because I have a group of cards.
Point is,
20 seconds.
okay, all right. So recently I called, as I often do, to report 7 cars parked in the bike lane on St. Claude. The bike lane on the block where Dustin was killed is full of cars all day and all night. And I was told by the operator that the city does not enforce, it does not do citations for anything except blocking a driveway between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So during the most dangerous time of day to ride a bicycle, it's de facto legal to park in a bike lane.
I'm going to look to Mr. Hathaway for a second and ask him, would that be, that can't be true.
This is what I was told by the operator, that they were told not to, yeah, they don't issue citations. During the most dangerous time of day for cyclists, it's legal to park in a bike lane.
All right, we'll have to work on that. All right, look, I'm a council member. I learned some things by having these meetings. I didn't know that there was a period of the day when we didn't enforce something like that. Is it a man or woman power issue? Oh, the people who are writing it. Okay, we'll talk about it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Kelsey Foster. 2 minutes, Ms. Foster.
Hello, Councilman.
Hello.
My name is Kelsey Foster. I'm at 215 Villette Street. I am a former service industry worker in the French Quarter. I am a bike commuter, a transit rider, and a candidate for New Orleans City Council District C. I am here today because I would really just love to underscore some of the things you've already said. I think that it is important for you and for this committee to be bold when you are advocating at the state. And I can't stress this enough as an Algerine. We must also be brave when we're hearing from community that these lives are the cost of convenience. And I think that that's really what has been frustrating to so many of us as we watch another bike lane death and another ghost bike go up. So my ask of you today is just to be bold and to be brave. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for commenting also. Matt Rufo. Oh, resilience and sustainability.
Yes, good morning, Council Member. My name is Matt Rufo. I'm the Transportation Policy and Program Manager with the Office of Resilience and Sustainability, here to speak in support of the call for action to improve safety on St. Claude for people walking, bicycling, and driving. I'd also like to provide some context for some ongoing effort between our office and other city departments to lower traffic deaths and injuries on our streets. Between 2019 and 2023, nearly 300 people were killed and more than 47,000 were injured on New Orleans roadways in that 5-year period. We're taking action to change this reality because no one should be at risk just moving through their neighborhood. This year, our office has partnered with the Department of Public Works and the Health Department to launch the Safe Streets for All program, which is developing a comprehensive safety action plan. This plan is a coordinated citywide effort to understand and address the root causes of fatal and serious crashes on our streets. It's using crash history and predictive analysis. It's building on community input. We've received over 1,000 responses to surveys done earlier this year, and we thank you, Councilmember Green, for speaking at the Safety and Mobility Summit back in May. And we'll also recommend projects, policies, and programs that improve safety and mobility for all. Our preliminary findings reveal that half of all citywide fatal and serious crashes occur on just under 10% of city streets, and one of these is St. Claude Avenue. We look forward to sharing the results of the data analysis and sharing what we heard from community members this fall when we publish results on our website and share them at community meetings, so stay tuned for more information about those opportunities. We'll also share final recommendations at the end of this year and would welcome the opportunity to share them with this committee at that time. In the meantime, we invite council members and the public to learn more about this important project at nola.gov/.
Wait, 30 seconds. Can you turn it back on for 30 seconds so that the public can hear what you're giving now?
Great. Thank you. Just want to share the website again. It's nola.gov/SS4A. Thank you.
Would you care to comment on your work with the state and what kind of support you're getting?
Yes, we've been hosting a number of different advisory committee meetings in which DOTD is invited and has participated in. We do need to schedule a thorough sit-down conversation with the state to determine what they're willing to be able to commit to as part of this plan and review some of the recommendations because we can't do it alone, right, as a city. A lot of these crashes are happening on state thoroughfares. And so we welcome the council's participation as well in encouraging the state to come to the table. But so far they have been involved in conversations, and we look forward to them being more involved.
DOTD, state representative,
That's right.
state senator, representative of the governor's office to New Orleans, they all need to be there.
That would be, I think, very constructive to bring leadership from all levels to the table.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation. Thank you for being here. Victor Pizarro, 2 minutes, Mr. Pizarro.
Hello, good afternoon, Councilman Green and this illustrious committee of one. I want to introduce myself, and I'm going to take most of the time doing that. I am a Gentilly resident, former St. Claude Corridor resident, and one of the founders and organizers of the New Orleans Community Bike Project. And we were responsible for putting about 8,000 free bikes on the road post-Katrina, and that caused an impact in our transportation modes in this city. What I want to say to you is that I was one of the very up-close witnesses. If you can hold up the sign, or is it here, the Garrett Geek sign? Do you guys have it? Garrett Geek, or Philip Geek, I just want to say that as a lifelong bike advocate, and this is the reason that installations on St. Claude and Legion Fields, witnessing this bike death up close impacted and traumatized a lot of people, and it's one of so many. 1 out of 4 people in the St. Claude corridor don't have access to a car. That is a huge amount. It's an abattoir. People die constantly. And I think that one of the most important things we can do to honor and respect these deaths is to come together as a city and demand accountability from the state for separated bikeways. And we live in Gentilly, and we've met several times. People constantly park in our bike lanes. We need that physical block to save lives. And as part of governance and representation, I think we should expect y'all to stand up to the state and be with us completely. I know we can't do everything, but I think that's the expectation and what's needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Nellie Katzen, Complete Streets Coalition.
Afternoon, it's afternoon. Good afternoon, Councilman Green. I'm tired. This is my 10th time speaking about this issue at this podium here. And I've spoken about it publicly a lot of times. I'll take off my Complete Streets Coalition hat, although that's a big part of my advocacy and my work. It's a part of my advocacy because I too have witnessed friends dying on the streets when they were bicycling in a bike lane that was not protected. Somebody mentioned earlier the bike crash on Esplanade. That was the one where my friends Cherie and David were killed. And I too have held someone's hand while they were bleeding out on the street when we couldn't have changed the behavior of the person who was driving the car who ultimately killed my friends. A public PR campaign would help, certainly, but we fundamentally are not going to be able to change the attitudes and actions of every single person driving the street. It just takes one. What we can do is we can build streets that are safer so that when people make bad choices to drive drunk, to drive too fast, to text while they're driving, whatever it is, that everybody else around them can be made safe, can continue to be safe. These solutions are not new. They are well tested, they are well studied, and with the same amount of funding, you could much more easily fix the street than change every single driver's mind. So I'm here in support of the Safer St. Claude campaign again. I'm here in support of you and all of the people who couldn't even show up today, using their power to bring people together to solve this problem. It's so easy. We can just fix it. Please fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your commentary and for your work. Dr. Vegno? Not here. Okay, she was here earlier. That's the Director of Health. William Johnson? Blake Owens?
How you doing? My name is Blake Owens. I have an organization called Get Up and Ride Foundation. We've been around for about 10 years doing a lot of the social rides. You might have seen us, hundreds of bikes in the streets with lights and music. It's been a beautiful thing. For over 10 years, we haven't had one violent incident. I take a lot of pride in that because people could be doing a lot of different things other than riding bikes. I also work with the Youth Empowerment Project, and I run the bike shop. We teach kids how to build bikes and try and get them jobs, some through Blue Crew. I used to be on the board with Bike Easy. I know a lot of these people in here. And overall, I just kind of want to piggyback off of what Nellie said. You know, it's really a simple fix. I know connecting the bikeways is tough because there's a lot of streets, but if you do it the right way, you know, you can account for other people who are driving and may not be doing, you know, doing what they're supposed to be doing properly, are still protected. About 6 years ago, before this whole plan came into place, I went on a trip with a lot of people from the city to Sevilla, Spain, where we analyzed how they changed their whole bikeway in record time and how efficient it was. And one of the main things I saw was some type of protection from the bikers in the cars. So I think if we focus on that, you know, that would make a significant impact immediately. My job as someone in the community, putting people on bikes, just trying to give them something social to do, something healthy to do, is also to let people know, let people become bikers. Because if you're a biker, you have a little more empathy for the bikers you see when you're driving your car. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. I appreciate your comments and your work. Clark Thompson.
Thank you. So much to say, so little time. Clark Thompson, 3201 DeSoto Street. Councilman Green, first, you and I talked 4 years ago about Monique Massey's death out there in front of the FBI headquarters, and we talked about that bridge and how you could challenge yourself, and I challenge myself when I drive over it, to remain under the speed limit of 35 miles an hour. And because of the engineering of that street, you can't do it. Can't stay that slow. It's absurdly slow. You have to, you feel compelled to speed faster. And I think that goes to a lot of what people have said here, and that's, we can go and teach people this and teach people that, but we're gonna have one drunk driver is all it takes to kill someone on an unprotected roadway. So it's engineering, it's good engineering, and supporting these engineers to do their good work is really what it's going to take to go and solve this problem in the long term. We can't go and prevent people from having medical emergencies behind the wheel of their car. We can't prevent them from drinking and driving. We don't prevent them from drinking and driving. What we can do is enable these engineers to do their job better. Now, second point, how do we do that? I need help. How do I go to Baton Rouge? How do I get their attention in Baton Rouge? I've been beating down the doors of every one of our representatives, and I try. And I need help. Where is New Orleans Day in Baton Rouge? We canceled it this year, I understand. we need direction, and looking to you and JP Morrell, who was a powerhouse in Baton Rouge. Let's please give us guidance. Tell us how do we play this, and how do we get them to change their ways, because they are not turning out. Their support for infrastructure's work is weak, and we are not getting what we need from DOTD at all. And we are trying. I am trying. They are a nameless, faceless entity out there with one engineer that I can get a hold of. I'm out of time. Last thing, if I could have 20 seconds, please.
It'll come back on. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson, 30 seconds.
First thing is with respect to the repeat offenders that we've discussed earlier. Uber drivers are the repeat offenders at night. They're a real problem. Give Ground Transportation Bureau control over Uber drivers. That is a department with teeth. They get the job done well. And give them authority over Uber drivers. That is something that you, the council, could do, is give them the authority to control these Uber drivers, to find these Uber drivers, and we will see some change in that. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your comments, and you can put some comments to us in writing, and we'll certainly respond to them. The Uber driver situation is a little bit more complex based on some laws and some court decisions, but we'll talk. I'll be glad to talk. I don't know, Tiffany Henry, Frank, or Henry? Neither one.
French. Thank you for being here today. Unlike the rest of your colleagues, I submitted an online comment, but you don't always read all of those in the meetings, so I just wanted to say that I do support the Safer in St. Claude and daylighting campaigns. I've been in a bicycle accident on St. Claude caused by a car opening its door into the bike lane, and I am frequently almost hit when walking, biking, and driving on St. Claude. During the bike walk audit that they showed earlier, my husband was almost hit by a bus that swerved into the bike lane. I won't rehash all the problems that Bike Easy already mentioned, but I just want to say that I have witnessed those problems, and they are causing New Orleanians to die. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Sorry about those situations that you were in. Eric Gabriel. Critical Mass NOLA.
Good afternoon, Councilman Green.
Good afternoon.
I just want to speak to the fact that we have an opportunity to address the state by what we actually do here in New Orleans. So we would like to see a connected network of separated bike lanes. And I feel like the best way we could urge the state is actually by what we do here. So we're urging the city of New Orleans also not only to advocate for us, along with us to the state, but to set the example on our major streets as well. I almost been hit on St. Bernard Avenue, for example, one night. This car going at least 80 miles an hour down St. Bernard Avenue, and swerved into the bike lane, came about 3 inches from running me over. And so I feel like the best way that we could address the state is by setting the paradigm for what we're asking for on a city level. I'm one of the organizers of Critical Mass NOLA. We're a volunteer group here in the city of New Orleans that takes the streets every last ride. We're reviving it actually, and we are committed to continue to have the die-ins like you saw in the picture earlier. Until we see some results, we plan to continue to organize, take over the streets, have die-ins, until we actually see these things brought into fruition. Thank you very much.
I understand your compassion and the compassion of many people who have spoken, but we cannot excuse some of the behavior that's going on. The example that you used of driving 80 miles an hour on St. Bernard Avenue, he needs to be given a multi-$100 ticket, and if he doesn't pay it, or he or she, they may need to be incarcerated.
But we're of the understanding that enforcement isn't going to solve the problem.
Well,
Just
there are so many crimes for which it's clear you're not supposed to commit them, and people commit them. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to penalize people when you catch them.
Sure.
There has to be strong support for that too. We have Troop NOLA in town. Governor Governor Landry has expressed his strong support for helping to enhance the quality of life in our city, and that may involve Troop NOLA.
Yes, sir.
With more enforcement, and with us supporting if someone has to be incarcerated because of multiple instances of violating the law, then everybody needs to be on the same page and recognize that's what needs to happen.
Yes, sir.
We have a police officer who was hit the other day by somebody who has multiple violations, traffic violations. It all comes together many times with those who commit those traffic violations time and time again, that eventually it results in some injury.
But I will also say in conclusion that I've seen Troop NOLA and NOPD parked in a bike lane just right over here on Loyola by the Chick-fil-A. So they also break the law.
I agree.
So
sure to
we need
report.
to see an infrastructure change. I think that's the only solution that
We
we
need to
have.
see an attitudinal change. If you're going to park in a bike lane, no matter who you are, there needs to be consequences for it. I got you, but the bike lane was there, so now
Sure.
we need to enforce.
We do need both, but
got
infrastructure has not come into fruition.
I got
And
you.
that's all we've had so far.
I got
Thank you so much, Councilman.
I appreciate your
you.
comments.
Thank you.
All righty. Michael Garver is our last comment before we close out, and this has been a very productive meeting opportunity.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Green. My name is Michael Garver. I live at 1323 St. Rock Avenue. I'm on the board of the Faubourg St. Roch Improvement Association, and I chair the Green Space Committee, which oversees bike lanes and infrastructure like that. So I live real close to the St. Cloud corridor. I watch it grow. It's exciting to see the businesses showing up, but I feel that it needs a lot of upgrades that include everybody. So we need improvements for the walking, cycling, ride-sharing, parking, and the motor vehicle traffic. So my proposal that I wanted to get in the hands of Mike and Bike Easy, if we can't get the protected bike lane on the sides, I really think we should develop the neutral ground. That could have a curbed edge with angled parking and a multi-use urban trail for walkers and cyclists. And this would keep everybody right in the center, and it would keep them protected. By adding the organized parking, it's letting the nighttime economy grow there, which we're already seeing it do, and it gives a place for those cars. So that's pretty much, I think it would solve a lot of problems by condensing it right in there, but I do believe that's gonna be probably put together by the state. I do have a few sheets that I wanted to hand over to these guys over here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. And look, we went on for a while because this is important. This committee only meets every quarter, so I wanted to make a chance, and I'm glad that we were last so that Bike Easy could make its presentation. I look forward to working with you more. I support the initiatives. You've heard me, I know loud and clearly that there needs to be cooperation by an entity which has jurisdiction over each one of the thoroughfares that we brought up today. And I've been saying that a lot more as a council member and getting a little bit of pushback, but the reality is that the money is there. It's not a question of the money, it's a question of the will and right, priorities. Mm-hmm.
Made online that are included in
I'm
the
sorry,
notes.
wait, I'm sorry, you're correct. We have online comments, and we have time for them. This is an important meeting, and it won't take us that long, but 10 minutes of online comments. Thank you, folks.
Appreciate this.
No, thank you for bringing it up. I was looking at the 12:30 hour and forgetting one important part of it. Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Ensign.
very aware that not everyone's able to come and sit down, keep each other company. So
And everybody, if you give us 10 minutes, we'll be finished in 10 minutes. We're going to take 10 minutes of those comments.
thank you all who came.
And to anyone who has to leave, thank you for your patience in being around for this important meeting. Yes.
Ready? First comment is Naomi Jones. She says Laura still believes this committee is maybe willing and able to make St. Claude safer. I write because I wanted to honor her faith. Please make St. Claude safer. Palmer put paths on levees in coordination with state and federal bodies. You could make a difference on St. Claude. Certainly, you could make daylighting happen on city streets. Sarah Katko says so many of our citizens are service workers who ride bikes to and from work. Car insurance rates have become unaffordable for many, and police presence monitoring drunk and reckless drivers appears to be non-existent. We all know the factors that are fueling our completely out of control hit-and-run culture, and we need change. Now the data is there, and this is truly a life or death situation. No one should feel terrified to ride their bike or walk on St. Claude. Please do better to protect the everyday people of this beautiful city and do your part in preventing us from experiencing another senseless and tragic loss of life. William Boyer says biking is healthy for the individual and good for the environment. We should live in a city that encourages biking, especially in a city like New Orleans, where we could bike almost anywhere in a relatively short amount of time if the infrastructure supported it. Unfortunately, people are scared to bike here because the lack of safe bike infrastructure has led to numerous injuries and deaths of cyclists in the city. Improving the infrastructure to encourage people to bike would also save the city money in the long run. Healthier people will lead to less health care costs. It would save money on road maintenance since biking causes less wear on roads and compared to driving in a car. And improved bike infrastructure will also bring in more money for businesses since people will enjoy more outdoor time and time exploring the city. Creating a physically separated bike lane on St. Claude is an important step to a better New Orleans for everybody. Kelly Hanley says we need a safer St. Claude. I stopped riding bikes when I moved to New Orleans because it's not a bike-safe city. I used to commute via bike in New York City to work. St. Claude is an active pedestrian and biking corridor with bars, restaurants, homes, and shops along it. It needs to have wider sidewalks, narrower streets, and a protected bike lane. I know the St. Claude Bridge is owned by the state, but it needs a protected bike lane as well. I live in the lower 9th, and 2 of my roommates bike over it regularly, which is very unsafe. We need to protect the people who live here, and cities thrive and more businesses open in areas that are pedestrian safe. Read The Death and Life of Great American Cities. I also support Bike Easy's plan. Matt Folger comments, St. Claude would better serve the needs of the community if it were safer to walk and bike along it. It's very dangerous as the design of the street still allows cars to travel at very high speeds. Future street design that discourages high speeds is necessary and possible. I'm a frequent bike and pedestrian user of the corridor, and I also see the economic benefits of creating an environment where residents feel more comfortable walking and biking in the area. Max Bean Khan says, I'm a musician who lives in Holy Cross and works regularly on Frenchman Street and the Quarter. I ride my bicycle often, but I find the combination of the St. Claude Bridge traffic and the lack of protected bike lane on St. Claude makes riding to work much less appealing because of the danger and stress level of that ride. I still do ride down St. Claude often on my bike, and I'm constantly dodging cars double parked in the bike lane, car doors opening into the bike lane, delivery trucks, trash, and all sorts of obstacles. You can't safely maneuver out of the bike lane on St. Claude because of the speeding cars and trucks on your left, and it makes for a dangerous ride. If the bike lane was protected, I believe many lives would be saved, and more people would ride bikes in the neighborhood, which means less cars on the road. This is Ryan Harms, who says, finding a way to activate state and local government advocacy for St. Claude that helps prioritize pedestrians, school children, bicycle and bike shares should be considered critical. I'm a father of 2 that lives just a block off of St. Claude, and nothing is more challenging than trying to cross St. Claude with my family. There are very few places with crossing access, pedestrian walk signs, or traffic calming measures like sidewalk trees, bump outs, etc. This is the critical beating heart of the downtown neighborhoods. Please help us find a way to improve its condition. Eric Cartier says, I have lived, worked, and bicycled in cities for the past 20 years, Chicago, Austin, Silver Spring, Baton Rouge, and now New Orleans. After just 3 weeks here, I can already unequivocally declare New Orleans is the most dangerous city in which I've ridden my bicycle. The busted, cracked, pothole-ridden streets scattered with construction debris are bad enough. Malfunctioning streetlights, missing street signs, and the dearth of bike lanes increase the danger. but it's the reckless drivers whose disregard for anyone else on the road but themselves that truly frighten me. I wear my helmet and bright clothes, I use hand signals, stop at street lights, and use front and rear bike lights at night, but they won't be enough to protect me when a speeding, weaving, distracted driver who I can't see through tinted windows runs me down. Bicyclists need separated, protected lanes, and city officials need to prepare a thorough and sustained public awareness campaign because this is a public safety crisis. Bicyclists and pedestrians have the right to use our streets just like motorists, support and create safer streets. Lauren Nagel comments, City Council, please be accountable to making St. Claude and other high-traffic streets safer for bikers, walkers, and peoples using public transportation. St. Claude needs protected bike lanes now. People should not have to risk their lives while riding bikes in the city. Hold DOTD accountable as well. Too many lives have been lost already to not making any change. Pledge to uphold complete streets principles in all new street design. Progressive cities throughout the U.S. know that investing in complete street infrastructure is investing in healthier, more equitable communities, and it is about time we did the same. Thank you. We have a few more. Barry Strom says on June 13th, 2023.
That's the one I read already. That's the one I read during my presentation.
Charles Shelley comments that it is mandatory that you support this. We need protected infrastructure on St. Claude. Another cyclist was killed in the time that you delayed this. Your inaction has killed another cyclist, and to refuse to act in the name of a procedural matters will only lead to more dead, vulnerable road users. If you care about people in the city as you proclaim to, while you run for re-election or election to higher office, your affirmative vote is necessary on this now. We are watching, and our votes will be influenced accordingly. Lauren Ellis comments, hello, I'm writing you in support of safer roads for cyclists. We need protected bike lanes. Paint does not protect us from reckless drivers. The month I moved here, my partner was hit by a drunk driver. He flew 10 feet and landed on his neck on the pavement. He lived. His bike snapped in 3 places from the impact. Just a couple of months ago, I was vexed by a vehicle trying to rush through a yellow light in St. Cloud in Poland, just blocks away from where Michael was hit and killed. We need protected bike lanes. Everyone I know in New Orleans has been hit or is close with someone who's been hit. Paint on a road is not enough to protect our lives and bodies. Please support Bike Easy and their proposals. Everyone deserves to make it home safe no matter the method in which they get there. Adam Davies says, as a resident and small business supporter who regularly dines, shops, and cycles along St. Claude Avenue, I want to express my wholehearted support for the Safer St. Claude campaign and its proposed safety and multimodal access improvements. St. Claude clearly serves as a main artery linking historic neighborhoods from the Bywater through the 7th Ward and into the lower 9th, and it hosts dozens of restaurants, galleries, shops, schools, medical facilities, and transit route. Every time I visit local businesses here, whether grabbing lunch or browsing galleries, I'm reminded that this street is the lifeblood of our community. Despite existing bike lanes, the corridor remains dangerous. Since 2017, there have been 9 fatal traffic crashes, and bicyclists often feel unsafe due to illegal parking and dooring. New Orleans Complete Streets Coalition, I've personally felt compelled to avoid cycling through parts of this avenue during peak hours, redirecting to less direct routes. Improving safety on St. Claude means empowering residents and visitors to safely choose active transportations which benefit local businesses and the broader community. I'm going to stop there.
How many more did you have, Anita? One and what? Just read them, that's fine. We only meet quarterly with this committee, so we might as well hear what's got to be said. And I appreciate your patience, but there's members of the public who are still watching, so we just have 2 more, that's fine. If it's too long, you can cut it down a little bit, but just read the last 2.
This is still Adam Davies. Local data shows approximately 341 bicyclists per day and over 12,000 daily bus riders on this corridor. Around 23% of households nearby don't have access to a vehicle, meaning they depend on walking, biking, and transit. The proposed safety improvements would ensure users aren't left behind. The campaign calls for enhanced bicycle lanes with protected buffers to prevent dooring and illegal vehicle encroachment, safer, more accessible sidewalks and crossings, intersection daylighting, increased ADA compliance, and green infrastructure to combat flooding and urban heat. These are proven cost-effective interventions that directly align with the city's Complete Streets policy. In closing, as someone who regularly shops and eats on St. Claude and cycles here to access the area's vibrant commercial scene, I strongly urge the city and DOTD to adopt Safer St. Claude's recommendations. A complete multimodal St. Claude will not only save lives, it will boost business, foster equity, and enhance resiliency in a corridor essential to our quality of life. The last comment we have here is from Daniel Maldonado. He says this comment is in support of safer streets for all residents of New Orleans. It's urgent to prevent fatalities through policies and complete streets. We need to protect pedestrians and cyclists.
Thank you, Bike Easy, and thank you for everyone who commented online and for everyone who was here today and commented. I appreciate your presentation, and it's not falling on deaf ears. We're going to try to implement some of those suggestions, but I do look forward to, with Mr. Hathaway understanding as I keep looking at him, I want to bring everybody together, including stakeholders, and let's not talk about we don't have the resources. Let's talk about what we can do. Thank you all very much today. It's been very valuable.
Thank you so much.